We started with absolutely nothing, but we did start with the belief you make your own destiny.
I've known Judy Lewis for at least 3 decades. I remember like yesterday, the first time I met her, we were working with a client. They were the PR firm, we were the agency. And in those first meetings, you're always trying to figure out each other's position and can you play nice in the sandbox? And what I loved about Judy, and I learned from that day, and I tried to apply it, was it wasn't just about me, it wasn't just about her, it wasn't just about the client, it was about something much bigger. How could we work together to create something that was magical?
The idea of being able to collaborate with other great minds is always something that I have thrived on, and it has really inspired me.
And if we grew the pie, we'd all benefit from that pie. And we could feast on that pie for years to come. The second thing was her ability to listen generously. You know, in these idea and creative sessions, I mean, it's addictive. I can imagine musicians the same way when you're jamming together and working on trying to find that hit song, and ideas are flying and people are trying to capture them on flip charts that nobody will read afterwards. But what you're looking at is you're just trying to find the notes that go together, the melody, the chorus, the riff that goes into building a great idea.
I believe if someone tells you what to do, give that consideration. But please think beyond, like break the traditional and go beyond into a territory that no one has thought about before.
And there was Judy at times listening generously and observing, times stepping in and going, here's what I heard, here's what I liked. And other times just coming in with these magical ideas. And I can tell you, Judy Lewis deserves, and her sister, Deborah, deserves so much for what they've done as this woman-led, independent PR agency in Canada.
Just because we hadn't done it before, just because we didn't have a plaque on the door, doesn't mean we can't go out with our new ideas and speak to people about how we believe communications can make a difference.
And as the world moved to multinationals, I'm a big brand. I want a PR company that can manage my PR around the world. They continued to grow. They continued to say to their clients that if you want strategy, if you want objectives, hence their name, Strategic Objectives, we're the firm that can make it happen. And they've been acknowledged domestically and globally as one of, if not the best PR agencies in the world. Something that everybody in Canada should be proud of, that kind of creativity and strategy, purpose, perseverance happens.
You need to go out and be the best that you can be, no matter what it is you choose to be.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated. So with that in mind, let me now bring in the one and only Judy Lewis. Judy, welcome to Chatter That Matters.
Well, thank you very much, Tony, for having me.
Very often, I talk to guests that I've never met, just research, but you and I go back decades. One of the first times I met you, and I can't even remember what client it was, and you walked into the boardroom, you had a sense of authority about you, but never imposed it. It was more about, we're all here to find that big idea, to make magic happen. I'm curious because everything I've read about you, it seems that has always been your superpower, that this really isn't about me or you or even the client. It's about the idea that really can connect with people.
I really do believe that fundamentally I love people and I love working together with people. So the idea of being able to collaborate with other great minds is always something that I have thrived on and it has really inspired me. So yes, it is the idea, but what is always so great is that when you are working with people who have a single vision of why we are doing this. And in our case, we are marketers and therefore we are engaged by a client that wants the best. If I say, what is my superpower, which I think is an overstatement, but it is working together to really find out what is the best for the client and the brand, rather than what is going to make me famous or you famous or anyone else famous.
The interesting thing, we talked about going back decades, but even a few decades before that, you were a young person growing up in Montreal, three sisters that have always made their mark. So talk to me about what happened around the dining room table, because back in those days, and I'm not trying to timestamp you, but you weren't expected to go and blaze the kind of trail that you blazed. Was this something your parents said, that's ridiculous, you could do anything you want to do? Or is that just something that you discovered about yourself later on?
I think I am an incredibly lucky person to have had such amazing parents. Parents who were both well-educated. My mom died at 93, but, she was one of the first graduates of, University of Manitoba. And she was just so proud to be a university graduate. And she always said to me, Judy, education is it. You've got to be educated. And then you need to go out and be the best that you can be, no matter what it is you choose to be. Don't think that some man is going to look after you. You go out and do what you think you will really enjoy. And so I really grew up in this environment where the dining room table was loud and discussion, and some would say arguments. I never saw them as arguments. I really found them as, the opportunity where we all got to defend our views, sometimes agreeing, sometimes not agreeing. But the beauty of disagreement and coming away from it and being able to love the people you are disagreeing with is something that I learned young, and I think has served me really, really well. And I think, we live in such a polarized, society now. But if people could understand that you really can still love people you are not necessarily 100% agreeing with, I think that's a powerful thing.
Education, get an education. So you go to McGill. Growing up in Montreal, McGill was that university. So what did you study there?
I studied communications. Now, communications back then was really studying theory and the likes of Marshall McLuhan, and the medium is the message, and the idea of public relations didn't even exist. Like, it was not something that we studied. We studied the objectivity of media, which, is laughable in this day and age to discuss that the media is objective. But, that's what we studied back then. And really my beginning in taking communications and making it work was one of my first jobs while I was in university, and a group of university students, women, girls as we called ourselves back then, worked as flower girls in the bars. And we worked 2 to 3 nights a week, and we took home like a serious amount of money in doing it. And we were fully bilingual, and we went into the bars and restaurants and proudly said, "Un rose pour madame." And my technique was always number one, to acknowledge the women. To me, that was the key. And if the women were not interested, I moved down. If the women were interested, the men were in serious trouble because they were going to be buying a lot of roses. And that was really the beginning of, being an entrepreneur, being a communicator, understanding what people really want and how to work together with people.
So when I came up to Toronto from Montreal, I think I had $76 to live on every 2 weeks after paying my bills. We all know what it's like as you're starting out. So I got a part-time job at Tip Top Tailors, and because I'd sold suits in Montreal, and I never sold a man. It was a men's store, and people say, "What do you mean?" They said it had to be a couple coming in, and I looked the woman in the eye and say, "Let's get him set up." Part-time, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturdays, I often was in the top 10 of the region against full-time people. And it was always similar insight that you understand who your buyer is. So much to talk about today, so we have to keep moving the story on. But the Thrill of a Lifetime, Canada's first reality TV show, how did you end up working on that, really just papered with a degree?
Before working at Thrill of a Lifetime, I was a serious journalist. I worked at CBC Radio and we did current affairs. And I really do believe that show or the shows that I worked on there fueled my curiosity because I was not schooled in any particular area. But within this show, it was entertain people as they drive home from 4 to 6 in the afternoon and was able to cover a variety of different topics. The problem with CBC, was, and maybe still is that they were way too serious in comparison to what people really wanted to hear about. And I believe people loved lifestyle and they believed that magical moment could really inspire them. So Thrill of a Lifetime was this crazy show that didn't even exist. And it was based on tell us your dreams, we make them happen. And people would write in letters and I would be the fairy godmother. I would choose the thrills. Then I would work with someone, what they were called back then as field producers, who would go out and shoot it. And that was really, in a bizarre way, the beginning of, our company, because number one, my field producer, after lining up all these segments to shoot out in Vancouver, resigned. And therefore, I no longer had a field producer to go out and shoot these great thrills that I had arranged. So my executive producer said, who do you know? Who can we hire? And I said, I have this really great woman. Her name is Deborah Weinstein, and she is my sister, and she would be perfect for it. Then we knew that ratings were everything. And therefore, what we did is we promoted our segments.
And were you supposed to promote it, or you just decided upon yourself that one of the things that we would do is just make this thing work even harder for us?
We believed we needed to make it work harder for us. And we made the show famous. And the more famous the show became, the more solid we believed that our ability was to continue to have this show move forward. But that isn't necessarily how Canadian media works. Just because your show has high ratings doesn't mean the show will continue in production. And that happened to us. So the show was, they welcomed us back. They said, you can keep doing the show, but you know what? You're going to have the same salary as you did a few years ago. And Deborah and I said, you know what? This doesn't make sense. Maybe we should start doing something else. And it was just kismet. Someone gave us a call and said, I know this guy who's doing a United Way program, and he really wants to take his neighborhood in Markham, Ontario, to be number one. And so all of a sudden we were doing communications. First time I ever used my real degree in the area of, developing programs.
So let me just unpack that for a minute, because there's a lot of people that dream. There's a lot of people that come up with a name for a company, and they might even do a website. But what I understand is this is 1983. You had $500 in the bank. You had to fight over one typewriter, one desk, and 2 phones. And you went after this. It wasn't like we're not ready. We don't really know what we're doing. We have really no experience. You saw an opportunity and you said, we can figure it out. And I've read studies in the past where, especially with women, unless they feel they're fully qualified, they don't put their hand up. And yet you don't only put your hand up, you jumped in with that very small bank account and one set of keys to type on.
We started with absolutely nothing, but we did start with the belief that you make your own destiny. It was not based on making a huge amount of money, but to be in control of your own future. So that when we had the offer to do this communications work and it went well, then it really signaled something in us that said, you know what, we can do things differently. Just because we hadn't done it before, just because we didn't have a plaque on the door, doesn't mean we can't go out with our new ideas and speak to people about how we believe communications can make a difference.
And talk to me about, I saw in one of the interviews, you talk about a call you'll never forget in those early days. What was that call?
So first of all, we now did have a name. We were called Strategic Objectives. And the reason we called our company Strategic Objectives was we believe that in order to do communications, you should always have a strategic objective. Seems very basic to us now, but not so basic back in 1983. People did PR just, I don't know, to get media coverage. Why? They didn't really know. So we walked into it and said, well, what is your strategic objectives? So we received a phone call from a lady by the name of Betty Ann Franson, and she was the sister of Margot Franson, and the two of them had started up this company called The Body Shop, which is led by a very famous, incredible woman out of the United Kingdom called Anita Roddick. And they invited us down to speak to them at their office about public relations and what we could do for them. So first we went to see their store, which at the time was very unusual, plain little bottles, people, asking you, would you like to recycle your bottle, and all of these odd things. And we walked in and we met them, and one guy was in shorts and the other two were in jeans. And it's like, oh my God, what have we fallen into? So we actually thought that they were a religious cult. We didn't actually realize that they were a retail entity. But once we did, they said, okay, well, how do you work? And we said, well, if you would like us to develop a strategy, we'll develop a strategy and we'll charge you $10,000 for that. And then we'll move on from there. If you like it, you can then engage us. And if you don't, you've spent $10,000. And we left. And the next day we got the phone call. We were told, you've got the job, but I want you to know why you got the job. Everyone we met walked in and said, well, we charge $50 an hour. We charge $60 an hour. We charge $75 for the first 10 hours. And you said $10,000. You must believe you are really, really good. And we went, didn't know you were supposed to budget on an hourly basis. We just pulled a number out and thought, well, that would be a good start. And that ended up being a 25-year client. But more importantly, it was so kismet because we were both of the belief that we could make a difference in the world.
I remember the campaign, Stop Violence Against Women. It not only roared through the marketing worlds and did everything you wanted it to do, but it won a United Nations Grand Award. I mean, that must have been the first time that you realized that your impact wasn't just about shaping how people think and feel and ultimately buy, but that you had the ability to work with clients and not only change their world, but change our world for the better.
I will never forget that experience working on that campaign. And it was all inspired by a conversation we had with them where we found out Statistics Canada had said 1 in 2 women had been abused. To me, that was absolutely the most horrific thing to think about, because so often you would be in a room with like 10 women and realize that, 5 of them had gone through some type of abuse. That was unacceptable. And this was a company run by women, and we were a company run by women, and therefore we really felt we could do it. And I think that what was so exciting about that is through that campaign, we not only proved that you could make a difference, but you could prove women customers, but I think all customers cared so much more about a company when they were doing good in the marketplace. And therefore, it's not just a bottom line about profit, but imagine a company that can make profit and do good at the same time. You can only do good if you are making profit, because if you don't have the money to invest in the other work that you are doing, you just will never be successful. So we sold product, but simultaneously we sold the concept that, a company can be an activist in a community and can make a difference.
So the 2 words that if you had a tattoo on your body, I'm not suggesting you do, but would be what if. That every time people talk about this sense of what if that you bring to conversations, unpack what if and tell me how it works within the world of agency, and if you can, how it might work in the world of just being an individual, whether I'm a parent or I'm my career and such.
I think the what if quality goes along with imagine if, and it is the ability to think beyond what you are seeing right in front of you. And when I speak to people within my agency, I always talk about, tell me a little bit about how you live life. You know, what do you do when you commute to the office? What do you do when you sit on the streetcar? And I walk through the city and I look at people, I look at buildings, and I imagine what they might do. I imagine what life might be without that building here. Imagine if there were no cars. Imagine if this was a pedestrian way. You know, imagine new ways that the traditional could change. First of all, it's a lot of fun for me. I enjoy imagining what could be, but I also find it can inspire others because so many people have been brought up to follow the road, you know, follow exactly what is done. If someone tells you to do something, that's what you do. I believe if someone tells you what to do, give that consideration, but please think beyond, you know, like break the traditional and go beyond into a territory that no one has thought about before. And I think that that is what inspires our team and gives people the license to think beyond. Honestly, though, Tony, it is not for everybody. You need to be a strong person to do that because it can be very uncomfortable.
How do you deal with the introverts in your organization? I've done a couple of shows on that because when you're in that kind of environment where everybody's just the combustion of ideas, but sometimes it's the quiet person that doesn't say a lot and then goes away and thinks about it, they can also add value.
It does. And I would say active listening is one of the most important skills of any leader. To be able to just not talk, you talk about a superpower, that is a superpower. Just to allow the pause to happen, being able to sit back and encourage others to speak and then truly listen, acknowledge what they are saying can give quite a bit of power to other people within the room, which I think is always very useful because sometimes the most quiet person is just percolating away with such great ideas, but they haven't mastered the ability to be assertive in their voice. And it's a delicate balance. I do encourage people to develop that voice because, you know, sometimes you need to just kind of say, excuse me, I have something to say, but not everybody has the guts to do that. So as a leader, I think you need to listen to the loud voices, but always give space to those more quiet people, because I think otherwise you miss some really good information.
Now, if I had the largest warehouse in Toronto, I probably couldn't put in all the awards and accolades that Strategic Objectives has achieved over the years, not just in Canada. I mean, you've shown that your agency, this independent agency, belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
What's the secret to that success? Is it, I mean, now that you're looking at your career and you're building the next generation of management, has that been by accident, do you think? Is it being just the fortune of being around at the right time? Or do you think that you've found something within your soul as an organization that you've been able to tap into, no matter how the dynamics of the business has changed over the years?
Number one, we truly care. We truly, truly care about our clients. And that is caring makes a difference. And I think working with full integrity, being very honest. I have always said strategic objectives may not be the agency for everybody. If you are looking for an executor, if you're looking for someone to say, yeah, I agree, 3 bags full, that's exactly what we'll do. Yeah, we're probably not the agency. But if you are looking for original ideas, if you believe that creativity combined with strategy, thus the name strategic objectives, can work together to make a difference, I think that does differentiate our work. And I think clients feel that, and the programs that we are putting together are different. They are not just the steak and potatoes traditional program that others bring to the table.
Judy, you've always had this defender of the underdog. As chair of the Canadian Council of PR Firms, you launched the industry's anti-racism. With Body Shop, you talked about domestic violence with women. Such an advocate for women-led business and independent agencies. Why do you think, is this a chip on your shoulder, or do you feel that somehow or other in the middle of all of this, because I had this platform, I have to also put it to use beyond profit, but maybe that is your purpose? The same way Body Shop had a certain purpose, your purpose is maybe defending the underdog.
I do like the idea of working with those who have not been branded as the number one, or, that they are offering something different. I do enjoy that because it's more challenging. And also, usually the underdog is more willing to take risk. And I do love taking risk. I believe change is very, very integral to success. But I don't believe that Deborah and I ever came to this business saying, we are women, we've been victims, and we are moving this forward. We have never suffered a victim syndrome at all. We have always come about it by, we can really make a difference. And I think we are just as good, if not better. And I think to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to have that belief and perseverance. And if I kind of look back and I say, what did my parents give me as a value? Perseverance is absolutely integral to it, because no matter what they went through, and it's certainly, they didn't come to life with much money. And, as I said, education was considered, the most important thing, but they always came about it with, you go for it and you don't give up. And I think that is the underdog syndrome, which is you don't give up. So yes, we were underdogs, but it didn't scare us. And it's kind of funny to think that we as an underdog would be celebrated as this unique, amazing agency that has been in business now for more than 40 years. Maybe we're not seen as an underdog now, but I think our approach is still underdog, challenger, doing it differently, and that's really what excites us.
When we return, Judy and I talk about mentorship. We talk about the next generation, Gen Z, and why she's opposed to the way they're painted as sort of lazy and uninvolved. And she has some great strategies on how to have them very involved. And then we go into my takeaways about why I feel Judy Lewis has and continues to put a wonderful dent in the universe of making positive impressions.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters. A big shout out to RBC for sponsoring the RBC Canadian Women Entrepreneur Awards and shining an important spotlight on Canada's most impactful women, the ones who have demonstrated excellence both locally and globally. Canada's economy and our local communities need more women entrepreneurs to drive growth and positive social change. We'll all be better for it. Women entrepreneurs, they matter to Canada and they matter to RBC.
I think the what if quality goes along with imagine if, and it is the ability to think beyond what you are seeing right in front of you.
My guest today is Judy Lewis. Her agency is called Strategic Objectives, but I see her as someone that has a higher purpose, who doesn't fear perseverance and understands that to have both, you also have to have a business that makes profit. As you and Deborah, I'm not saying back away from the business, but start putting more in the hands of the next generation. How do you let them do their business and put their stamp on something that is being really something that was formed around your dinner table years ago with your parents? Like, how do you let other people go, it's my turn now to put a bit of a twist on this?
So moving our business to the next generation, we are lucky enough. I have a son and Deborah has a daughter who are both moving into the agency. They've now been here for 4 years. They had significant, more than 10 years, experience before they even joined us. And they are working together with professional management. We have a president who is sharing all of her expertise, and Deborah and my role are as mentors and to continue to inspire the creative ideas and the creativity of moving forward into big campaigns. The key is for us not to step on their ideas. And we are lucky enough to be in a profession that has changed so dramatically. I mean, when we entered this profession, it was mostly communicating with the media and staging events. Now it's social media. It is digital communications. It is outdoor activities. It is so broad that they have grown up in the digital age, and they are bringing that new approach and the many new approaches that are integral to our business now forward in a very natural way, which we were not schooled in. They were.
Yeah, you talk about your role as a mentor. I listening to one of your interviews, and I loved what you talked about reverse mentorship and how you thought you were there to give advice and you got something from a Gen Z that changed a lot of the way you lead. And I wonder if you could share that story.
I'm very inspired by the Gen Z generation. And I know that a lot of people have said, oh my goodness, they don't work as hard, et cetera, et cetera. That is not my experience. My experience is that we have a generation moving in which has very good ideas and will bring new approaches to the business environment. What I do find interesting is the Gen Z very much appreciates integrity, making a difference, being active not only in generating sales, but in generating a more environmentally sustainable world, at least in Canada. And therefore, in an odd way, I kind of feel my leadership was Gen Z before Gen Z existed. So I feel very aligned with that generation. And what they have taught me is, from the very beginning, respect is really, really important in relationship building with junior staff. And I know that many junior staff will report that, they've come to our agency and they can't believe how much they feel a part of it. Like they aren't at a lower level. When we originally started the company, we didn't even have titles because we didn't even believe in titles. We were just a group. We were a collective of people all working together. We only introduced titles when our staff said, oh, well, I need a title. And we kind of said, what title would you like? Here you go. Have a title.
God, that reminds me of my Capital C days. I said, I don't want HR manuals and I don't want titles, but eventually people need to know where they stand within the world. It's
Yeah.
Do you fear retirement? Like one of my greatest fears is not having this platform, not doing what I'm doing in the AI world, that just having that void. Do you have the same fear, or are you embracing the fact that over the next little while, as your children take over the business and the professional management do more of the business, that you're going to have ample free time to do other things?
I will never use the word retirement because it is foreign to who I am as an individual. I think I will not be doing what I used to do, but I will be doing different things. So I have taken on quite a bit of volunteer work. I feel that's really important. I'm working with the school right now to develop their new strategic plan to take it forward into the next 10 years. I feel with the American Marketing Association, I'm signing up for more mentoring. So I'm mentoring people at 10 years plus to assert their leadership. And I really enjoy contributing to the profession. So I think that my role will be different. And will I be doing more things in free time? Absolutely. When I started my career, I used to say, I will work for anyone as long as they send me away, because travel was the one thing I could not afford. And therefore, the only way I was going to see the world is if I worked for people who would send me away on travel. Well, now I have more money to travel, which is very exciting. And each year I do some amazing trip, which again fuels my creativity and allows me to see how different people live in different worlds and what values they bring and how little you may have materially, but how rich your life may be in so many other ways. And I have a granddaughter, which I know you have grandchildren now, and the joy that brings is incredible. And so, yes, I have time for other things. I'm a mad cyclist. I cycle a lot. I'm a pickleball fanatic. So I have made time for other activities, which I never had while I was working full-time. And full-time was probably full-time plus a half. So,
Judy, I always end my podcast with my 3 takeaways. And the first one, know your audience. And that to me not only began with you trying to work your way into conversations with the family table, but I just love the way you talked even as a flower girl. Know your audience, know who you're targeting. As a journalist at CBC, knowing the fact that we were too serious for what the audience wanted. The building of the reality show and realizing that there was a need to communicate what we're doing to the audience. Such an important thing for people that are commuting today, doom scrolling, just to look up and look around and breathe in life and the city and the person watering the plants and imagining their life and what they're doing. It creates such a tapestry to draw on when you're, how do I fit into this world? Or more importantly, how do I help someone or some brand fit in? So I love that one. The simplicity of why are we doing this? We're so eager at times to get that job or to get that assignment. But if we really understood the why in life, the quick story I have is Holt Renfrew, where you'd go in there and nobody would even look at you if you weren't dressed properly. And I'd say to them, and somebody comes in and buys a pair of jeans, and you just looked up at the customer and say, yeah, I've got jeans. What do you need them for? Oh, I'm going skiing. Oh, on a praise ski party? Have I got an outfit for you? Taking that event and imagining the moments that go with it. And the last thing that is really the 3 Ps, which is this sense of the intersection first between profit and purpose. I think a lot of problem with our society right now is we divide the two of them. Capitalism gets a bad name, or oh my God, you're just so socially minded. But if we bring those two together and say they have to work hand in hand, and then the final P is a sense of perseverance. Maybe we can all do a better job at changing our world and the world around us. So, Judy Lewis, Strategic Objectives, who I met and was impressed with from the first day, continue to be impressed with. I just want to thank you for joining me in Chatter That Matters.
Thank you. It has just been an honor, and I have the greatest respect for you, Tony. You are changing the world with every podcast you're doing.
Once again, a special thanks to RBC for supporting Chatter That Matters. It's Tony Chapman. Thanks for listening, and let's chat soon.